Carl Kwan, Burke Franklin podcast. Carl is an expert on videos just like this for making a video for your company. I'm Burke Franklin with Business Power Tools, with a platform of business templates that can help you build your company. Like it says, making it easier for entrepreneurs to build successful companies. Let's chat. Carl, how's it going?
Pretty good, thank you. Thank you for taking the time out to talk to me today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. How's my background? Is my video looking good here? Am I okay?
Stunning. It's a for some reason you look very bright. I don't know what it is. I think it's just your aura. Maybe it's like an aura thing.
I'm
Maybe.
sitting in front of a window, so
Okay.
sometimes it changes. I've got different lights I can turn on, turn off, different things I can do. But today I'm sitting in front of a window and it's overcast outside. This is just for our listeners or viewers. When you've got your lighting, I found that if it's sunlight, it's super bright. I can close a curtain. But today the window's open and it's overcast, which creates a, what do you call that kind of lighting where it's just like it's diffused
Flat.
and
Yes,
it's
it's diffused
flat
and flat.
and it's
Yes.
bright. So let me try closing my curtain to see if that makes any difference. And at least I can tune out some of it.
Ah, there we go.
Way better. Okay,
There we go. Proper exposure.
so there you go. There's lesson number one, video people, is proper exposure on yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Not properly exposing yourself, but proper exposure when it comes to the light that you're using for your video. That's probably one of well, not one of that's probably one of the main things that people get wrong, I guess, when it comes to making videos or even these Zoom calls and things like that. It's just the lighting, and it's not easy for people to understand it, and people get sold on using these ring lights, which really bothers me.
What is with
So
this ring light thing? I think the ring lights are awful. But lighting, you talk about, I think lighting is one of the things, since we're on the subject, people just aren't either what the words are aware of it, conscious of it, don't understand it, don't realize it. Oh, it's lighting that I can change to make myself look whatever, the right color that you are.
the right, and you can be any color you like,
Yeah. I have a thing I can click here. I can make myself. I can reverse it. I can make it look like I'm an X-ray. I can do all kinds. I can put a little beard on if I want. But
I like
I
the
just
beard
want to look
thing.
normal.
Yeah.
That it's just, let's say we want to look normal. The lighting needs to be normal.
Healthy glow, healthy, normal, exposure to the skin tone, whatever. But the thing about the ring light that really bothers me, and I think the reason why it started was from the people that were doing the makeup and cosmetics types of videos,
Yeah.
who were using these lights, and people could see the little ring in their pupils, and for some reason people thought that was really attractive. I don't know why, but that light is very specific for that type of video, or making yourself up, as an example, because you're supposed to see behind the light in order to see the mirror, so that you can actually see what you're doing,
You
kind of
need to
thing.
see through the light. If you had a light right in your face, you couldn't see it. So
Exactly. So you couldn't actually apply any makeup on. And so that's where that came from. And it also is used, I guess, when people are in certain types of photography as well, where there is a type of ring light that does create that kind of effect, for just an effect. However, somehow that became really popular with, Zoom becoming, work from home becoming very, popular, and people started gravitating towards these ring lights. And now the reason why it bothers me so much is because it's a very small source of light. So imagine, even like if you think about the sun, it's gigantic, but because it's so far away, it looks like a small ball of,
right,
light
only
coming at
this
you.
big. Yeah.
Exactly. It's really only, about 4 inches tall, 4 inches around. But it's because it's so far away, and because it's so bright still, you get this really bad, harsh shadows on you and very
Right.
harsh lighting.
Right.
And so the most flattering light, like what you have even today, right now, is diffused light, where it's even across your face and creates a nice shadow on one side of the face, kind of thing, which looks really much more attractive. And so I'm kind of on a mission to get people to throw out their ring lights. It's sort of a mini, crusade that I'm on.
The other thing I noticed about ring lights is wearing glasses like you and I are, the ring light is really big in the glasses and it's really distracting. And then it just looks really strange.
Yes, there's also that as well. When you wear glasses, there's like a whole other thing. But yeah, the ring light phenomenon, hopefully it will, pass at some point. But what about for you? Like, did you have to sort of do much to kind of get, yourself kind of set up for this whole thing, or there's still things you're kind of learning, or what's sort of been, working for you? What didn't work for you before that's sort of working for you now?
Well, have part of my background. I was kind of I was like I call it a model. I think that's kind of a weird term, but when I was in Silicon Valley, I'd be the guy in a suit standing next to a big refrigerator-sized computer, and they'd take pictures. It was really,
Right.
for me, the modeling business was like comic relief. But I saw a lot of different lighting, those giant light boxes that are different angles and places. I find a better light for me is something kind of comes down from the front up high like that. If I have, yeah, the light, of course, underneath you, the little joke you see with a flashlight, you're camping, you put the flashlight, that's all creepy. So there's that. Just some natural light all around you. I think you get some lights out here, it casts different shadows in different places. If you want to show the lines off in your face, great, probably not. I find the camera I'm using is one of these Logitech stream cams, which is 60 frames per second instead of 30. Most are 30. So I don't really know exactly what that difference makes. Of course, it's faster and it keeps up with movement, I suppose. I was hoping it would prevent some of this ghosting of the green screen I have behind me, but it doesn't really do that. All that we can see it kind of fluttering there, kind of weird. Everybody's got some kind of green screen. If you got a proper green screen, of course, you don't have the hair doing this thing, so you've got a solid line around your head. But are you using a green screen, or are you using the effect you're using a real background? Okay,
That's a real background. No,
that's
so
probably
the
the
thing with the
best.
green screen, yeah. Well, it does make a difference. So the 60 frames and 30 frames is actually quite interesting because it's the frame rate of how the camera's filming. So it's actually taking, 30 frames per second is what that means, or
Yes.
60 frames per second. So the higher the frame rate, the less motion blur there is in the video. So if you're moving around, you actually receive less motion blur. So in movies and TV and cinema, whatever, mostly movies, it's 24 frames per second for movies. So there's a sort of a natural motion blur to movies, which has that sort of look to it. And when you watch TV shows, for example, or news programs, for example, they're usually at 30 frames per second. So they have a little bit of motion blur, but they're more crispy looking, where there's more like a soap opera effect to
I
it.
remember that the soap operas back in the day, it was a little too real. It was very real. You could see everything, and for some reason it looked fake, which is
Right.
bizarre.
Exactly, which is very bizarre. Now, so for you, what you're trying to do, the thing with the higher frame rate too, is you actually need more light because it's actually moving, it's actually closing faster. It's actually moving faster. You actually need more light in order to expose properly. So when you
It
have
doesn't
it,
give it enough time to expose, but it gives it half.
exactly, exactly, it's literally like just flashing on and off kind of thing is what well, it's staying open, but it's literally flashing on. It's
But
a
twice
series
as
of still
fast.
images, right? Yeah, twice as fast as that. So what you're trying to do with the green screen, the it's less of the sort of getting rid of that background thing or fixing that. What'll fix that is actually proper lighting. So if
Yeah.
you were to light your background, so let's say I don't know how far away you are from your background,
This is
but
actually what my office looks like. I just took a picture
yes,
of it on a good day with the right light in the background, with all the lights on, with my tree, and that kind of stuff. And I could turn this off. You could see what I look like without it on here. Choose virtual background. Where's my no background? So that's
ah,
that's what I look like for real. Of course, you see the dog, and you see the back of the
yeah,
place.
yeah, I
But
can
the
see it. Yeah,
office is here. It's like I'm in a giant studio, which is kind of cool. But the lights
yeah,
are on, and I can dim those and do different things. But of course, I wanted to have my logo up in the corner there, and
right.
because
Yes, when you do that, I mean, it looks fine. I think that if you did have a green screen behind you,
yeah,
then it would probably be a little bit cleaner because then the computer program isn't trying to figure out where your hair and stuff
and a
is
tree leave
cutting
off.
off.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, right? Then it makes it easier. But then people have to also light the green screen, and it also needs to be at least 5 feet away from you. If you don't have
Really?
it that far, yeah, if you don't have it at least that far away from you, you will see green on people's skin and hair. So anyone who's very, lighter color, whatever fair skin, or anybody, you'll see a green sort of like cast on them, and that comes from being too close to the green screen.
So you look like an alien if you do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
other crazy
yeah.
thing I noticed with green screens, like if you're wearing something like with a green thing on it, you look like you have a hole in you. It's just like it doesn't play. It goes right through you. It's like, oh, you're wearing a green shirt. Of course, you could wear a green turtleneck and you look like you're headless. Just all your
You,
head's hanging there, nothing else. So
you know, it'd be really cool is if you had like a green sticker on your forehead or something, and then you actually put like your logo right there, or like an eye there.
don't try this at home, people. This
Yeah, don't try this at home. Yeah, don't do this. Not professional at all. So, so aside from like this whole video thing for you, I mean, like you said, you had like some background or whatever.
yeah.
What other sort of adjustments have you made in terms of your
Well, one
business?
of the things I noticed, I learned this from a photography class, is called the rule of thirds.
Hmm.
The rule of thirds is if you drew a tic-tac-toe, across, get my hands in the right place here on the right frame. But if you did a proper tic-tac-toe here, the intersections of the lines in your screen, my hands are bugging this thing backwards. Those are really the focal points in photography. So it's just interesting. And I notice on my phone, I have that little piece turned on. So I'm taking a picture of the sunset. I've got the sun in the lower, because it's down low, but the sun is in the lower left intersection of the lines. So you get a nice sky, not a whole bunch of beach, and it's on one side. So it gives it really the composition wise, it's really good. I see some people like you're a little off center, which is off center. So I even set up my background to be a little off center, so I got plenty of artwork behind me here, so I can sit over here in front of it. And also the idea of like sometimes if I was here, you get a sense that the tree was growing out of my head. And so I noticed in photographers when I was working with these guys, oh, movie, look, you got a thing sticking out of your head. Because if we're 3D looking at each other standing in a room, you wouldn't notice this. But when everything flattens out to 2 dimensions like this, it looks like the tree's sticking out of your head. Or I've got some bizarre hairdo here, but we know it's a tree, and I'm like you say on the green screen, I'm far enough in front of it that it doesn't quite look that way. Plus, I move
Right.
around, so you can tell there's a tree over there, and it's not sticking out of my head. But I do see people with strange things sticking out of their head, things in the frame that they're not aware of, their background, maybe they haven't picked up their clothes. I remember going on Craigslist one day. I was looking for an electric guitar, and here's this guy with an electric guitar and a throne on his bed. Took a picture of it, but he's got his underwear and socks around on it. I don't want to touch that thing. Ew. So you've got to be really aware of the
Yeah, he,
background. And many people are completely oblivious to their background. They just think, I'm going to talk to you, but you don't realize there's all this distracting stuff behind you. Like even my books back here, I would like to rearrange those, but you can see I've got some good books. I should put my own book in there. What a concept.
right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so so the background is huge. Lighting obviously makes a difference. And then I'm reading in a book about selling your services.
Mm,
And it has one of the chapters is really about being congruent with
mm,
your audience in a way where, like he's talking about this one guy who is a headhunter, so to speak, but his first pass at it was helping college students get jobs. Well, he had an office in kind of a dumpy place, and walk up and not take any more kind of shabby professor-like clothes, and students are good with that because then he didn't charge much money because everything looked like that. When he pivoted to say, I want to help executives who either want to get a better job, they want to change careers, they want to move up in the world. Well, that executive comes into this crappy looking office and he's wearing his professor clothes. You're thinking, can this guy really get me the job I'm looking for? So you want to think about, what are you wearing? What do you got on? Are you really looking congruent with what you're doing? Now, I'm in the software business that's online. I'm working out of a home office. I've got contractors and people I work with like you who are all over the place. And so I'm not sitting here, I could be sitting here wearing a hoodie like Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not a hoodie kind of guy, but at least I'm not sitting here in a dirty t-shirt, like, yeah, I'm on video. I'm talking to people because I'm at home and happen to be wearing pants, believe it or not. And so some people, like you see Mr. Wonderful, you see the back of the studio shots of him. He's sitting there in a bathing suit with a coat and tie on a stool talking to the camera. Hey, fair enough, but just saying, you want to, whatever it is you need to do to get yourself in that frame of mind and have that right look and feel about you that is congruent with what you're selling your audience. It doesn't have to be a
100%.
guy. So
100%. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's, when I help people with the videos and things like that, and even the presentation skills and whatever else, and we talk about making videos, and we always say, look, when someone meets you in person, they should actually think, oh, you're just like you are in your videos. And then when they go to your website, they should also get the same impression of you as well. So whatever it is, it's all part of your branding, right? It's all part of your personal branding. It's your, whatever business branding you have. It's all part of that. And so it, again, needs to be congruent because you don't want to take people out of their, I guess, perception or whatever impression they've had of you, and you don't want to ruin that for them. So, because at that point, then it's a disconnect, and they may not want to work with you at that point, or they may suddenly realize that, oh, wait a minute, who is the real Burke Franklin kind of thing, right? Is it the
Right.
guy with the refrigerators in the photos, or is it the guy that does the software, kind of thing, right? So if it's the same person, then great, that's what they're looking for. Is they want to make sure that you're consistently the same person that they think you are, and so that's super important. And even things like the clothing that you wear, for example, that, like you said, that's super important as well. Like, don't show up to anything where you think that people won't accept you for who you are. I mean, it sounds stupid, but unfortunately, we do still judge a book by its cover, and that will never really. I don't think that'll ever really go away. So definitely, one tip that I had that I remember reading about was you should always dress a little bit better than the people that you're going to be talking to, right? Dress like them, but just a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
Just so that it's like, okay, just a little bit better. You could use that for job interviews as well, but yeah, super important to have that consistency.
But yeah, the other thing I think about is like I was watching this one woman one time, and she always wore these red frame glasses. Now you and I are both wearing these glasses, so people are going to get used to seeing us with these glasses on. Now, if I am looking for you, like if we're going to meet at a conference or something, and you show up without your glasses on, now I'll recognize you because you're recognizable. But I'm just saying, if you're wearing your glasses, like, oh, there's Carl, I would recognize you like that. And the thing is, and if you're going to, but this woman was wearing these red glasses, and I remember seeing her at a conference, I thought, are you the same person? Because she wasn't wearing the red glasses. All her videos had her wearing these big frame. I mean, you could tell it was part of her shtick. But it was great. It played really well with her on the videos. But when I saw her in person, she wasn't wearing them. So if you're going to do that, wear them all the time. Now, these are readers, so I look kind of
Yeah.
more distinguished with them on myself. But then invest in some decent frame glasses, even if they got nothing in them.
Right.
You've got a good
Right.
looking. I was wearing these other glasses, and friends were saying, "Yeah, those glasses you're wearing look kind of cheap." I said, "Well, yeah, they're only $20." How about It's all part of it. It's all part of the show. And now the other thing I would say, and the flips back to what you're saying about that congruence look, is if you're going to have this different thing everywhere, you got to have a lot of money to be marketing all these different personas. Because if you've got a limited budget, which I'm just going to presume most of us want to keep our marketing budget tight, you want to have one look, one consistent thing that people can recognize everywhere, and that will be you. And that's something you reinforce over and over again.
Mhm.
In fact, I remember speaking with the guy who wrote the whole, oh God, uh, it was the guerrilla marketing. J. Conrad Levinson. He used to live near where I was in Marin County, and I was over at his house. We were talking about marketing, of course. And he says, it's funny, the people at Marlboro were giving us a hard time. Like, why are we paying you guys so much money? You just keep running these cowboy ads. He said, you're paying us a lot of money to keep you from changing it. Because they wanted to, hey, let's try a ballerina. Let's try this. Let's try that. So, are you kidding me? You're killing me. The cowboy, you got to have the cowboy. And Marlboro has won, they dominate because they kept the cowboy. Maybe swap out the cowboy from time to time because they die of cancer. But you got to put it. You come
I
back
don't
with
think
a
they care about
cowboy.
that.
It's still got. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. It's still a cowboy. You got to keep the cowboy in there. And if you got an
Uh,
ad that's running, keep using it. Don't change it.
Yeah, that consistency is super important. I think but for a big brand like that, especially, it's really important. Like, you can't imagine like the Coca-Cola commercials in the wintertime without the polar bears or something. It's just part of what their whole shtick. There is a movie called Harley Davidson, The Marlboro Man. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's absolutely horrible yet really fun. It stars Mickey Rourke as Harley Davidson and Don Johnson as the Marlboro Man, and they have to be best friends. So definitely check that piece of not so good movie, but very fun,
Just as much as a
fun bit
B
of
movie.
trash. Yeah, fun bit of trash
Is it
to
better than
watch.
Sharknado, or is it
I,
kind of like
I, I would say that if you like motorcycles and pool, and just acting silly with guns. I think that's like I think it would be a good waste of 2 hours for sure.
Oh, great. I need to do that.
But the whole idea of the Marlboro Man. So even like Don Johnson played literally this cowboy, who was his nickname was the Marlboro Man. So yeah, it's very iconic. I mean, for small businesses, I think that you do have a little more flexibility in the sense of, okay, yes, you can make a little bit of an adjustment, but like you said, who you're showing up as,
Yeah.
should be relatively consistent. And the whole thing about the glasses is an example. I wear these glasses mainly because, I'm sitting in front of the computer all the time
Yeah.
and I like using them for that. And then in some of the videos, I will wear the glasses. But normally, because I don't have a prescription in these are just for this purpose. I usually don't wear them when I go out. I do have reading glasses like you, but I only need them for reading. And so they actually look kind of similar,
Remarkably similar.
right?
Yeah.
Remarkably similar, right? So they're very similar. So I can kind of get away when I need to wear
Yeah.
the reading glasses,
Right.
but for the most part, usually when people see me, it's usually like this. So I worry about it a little bit. So I'm like, oh, maybe I should just, because I do like the glasses. I do like these, so I feel like I should just wear them all the time. But it is a branding thing, and I'm very conscious of it. So when people meet me, if they see my videos or whatever, if they, oftentimes they will say, you're just like you are in the videos, and
Yeah.
and that's kind of the power of them as well. I have one new client who I only sort of dealt with through sending him video messages, and he kind of knew about me from referral, but he didn't actually meet me. I talked to him one time over the phone, and then we actually started working together this month. Earlier this month, I went over to their place of business to talk to him for the first time. And when I met him, when I finally met him in person, he was like, "Oh," he was taken aback a little bit, but not in a bad way. Not like, "Oh my God, what did I do?" It was more like, "It's so bizarre because I already know you, but I've never met you before.
Yeah. Isn't that
Why is
interesting?
that?" Right? He goes, "Why is that?" And it's that familiarity because he'd seen me in the videos talking to him. He kind of developed this rapport with me already. And it's the same thing when we meet celebrities, as an example, who we've seen for years and years and years. We feel like we know them, but obviously they have no clue who
But
you are.
I
Yeah,
think
they were
they get
like,
used to that, realizing that people know them and like they act like they know them, and they don't even
right,
know.
right. They don't know you at all, right? So they're very, gracious to be, not, running away. But so at the same time, we paid them obviously to be celebrities. Not like they're not haven't earned it from us, kind of thing. But yeah, it's definitely a powerful tool.
Something else I want to ask you about. You're wearing some earbuds, and
Hmm.
basically you're wearing all black, black accessories, white wavy background. But these earbuds are these, and I have speakers on the side, and I have
Mm.
the Logitech camera. I'm not using a microphone. I don't know how I sound, but I've got a proper, blue snowball microphone with a pop filter. That's that little screen in the front. So it doesn't make a big sound. I just wonder, and your mic has foam on it, so that seems to do the same thing. I just wonder. So I see people sometimes like I'm not using earbuds, and I don't know how I sound. I presume I sound okay, but
Hmm.
that's a thing too. You want to be sure you sound good. You don't sound like, "Hi, I'm calling you on the phone," like the phone used to be. I mean, we've got great sound these days, and even carries through our mobile phones. But so tell me about, why are you wearing earbuds? You've got a proper mic in front of you, so I'm presuming it's not using the earbud mic. Would you otherwise get feedback if you had the earbuds off? I don't know, I'm just saying.
It's more of a making sure that my wife doesn't have to listen to all the conversations.
Oh,
So
so she
she's in
doesn't
the
hear
other.
me talking to you, in other words.
Exactly, exactly. We don't need that. But in case you say something we don't want her to hear. But but it's mainly so that it's for privacy for myself. I like it in order to hear better for myself. But also it's just that no one else around has to hear it. So I'm actually this area here that I'm in. It's actually my balcony. We have an 18 by 4 foot balcony kind of thing. It's enclosed, and so if I open this curtain here, it's the curtain for the balcony. You'll see sort of out to the street kind of idea. So I'm out here. It's enclosed, and so for me, it's a privacy thing in order to not have my wife or whoever's home because she's a stay
Yeah.
at home mom not to have her listen to every single conversation that I have over Zoom, which makes it a little bit nicer for her. But the audio definitely is super important, and when it comes to video, especially, we say that it's half of the video. Actually, audio is half it. So for me, I've been using this microphone. I bought this microphone originally for voiceover work, for doing the voiceovers at home, because it rejects a lot of the sound. Like if I move back further, there's not as much. You can't actually hear it as well when I move back. It
You
has
sound
to
like an
be
FM DJ up close.
right. If I'm all close, it sounds a lot better. But it's a proximity thing with this microphone. You have to be close to it in order for it to sound good. And so that's why I use this microphone, because I know that, especially for me in my business as a video person, if the audio sounds really bad, then I feel like, oh, that's not good. Probably not a good
What kind of mic
impression.
is that, just for the audience?
This is a Shure SM57, which is normally used for instruments. When you're in a rock band or music, whatever, and you're playing instruments, you're using this.
This is the mic they put in front of the amp, and the amp,
Exactly.
the amp and put the amp to the. I always think that's so weird. Anyway, so that's the mic for that. How much is a mic like that?
I think it's like less than $100. It's like about $100, but you obviously need like an interface for it, because it doesn't have USB. You can't just connect it directly to your computer. So you do need some sort of an audio interface. And then this particular one, it requires a lot more gain from the amplifier. So I have a separate device that actually pumps out more power to this microphone.
Get more juice into the computer.
Exactly. It's like it's a blue little device. I don't know how it works. It doesn't have any power to it whatsoever, but it's blue, and you plug in the wires to it, and then it like boosts the signal somehow. I have no idea how. It's magic, I think. They're little gremlins or something, little hamsters in there like running around, I think is what happens when you plug it in. But the other thing that I use is a software tool called Crisp, KRISP. And what that does is it eliminates background noises, and it eliminates any kind of echo as well. So if there was a chainsaw behind me, someone was attacking me with a chainsaw, you wouldn't hear it. So I think that even if I like clap, you probably can't even hear me clapping at all.
No,
right? Like I'm like clapping.
Barely.
You can see my hands, touching each other, and you can't actually hear that because the software is removing that sound.
That's amazing. Well, so, the other thing that's readily available to people listening to us, I can't hear it, and you maybe you can hear yourself, but they can hear me talking to you. They can hear you talking to me, and so I've got my video camera on top of the monitor up here. And it's like I said, it's a Logitech Stream Cam. It's got what's called beamforming, which I don't know what the hell that means, but basically it says, oh, you're over there, I'm going to focus on you, which is good. But you can hear the difference if that's the way you want to go. If that's good enough, great. If what they want your quality, then they know to get your kind of get your Shure microphone. So they can tell right off we're like an A/B split test on mic quality right here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's if you're going to use it often, if you're going to be talking to people often, it is worth it to get the better microphone, mainly because it's a better experience for the people listening. I think it's mostly that. For me, it doesn't make any difference because I don't hear it, but I know that when people hear it, it definitely makes an impression. And I do often get that comment of, oh my God, that sounds so good, kind of thing, right? And I go, you sound so good on the microphone. I go, yeah, because normally my normal voice is a Mickey Mouse voice, so that's why.
Hey, that's what technology is for. I use my blue snowball when I have it right in front of me, and when I was doing my video demos for business power tools, giving you a demo of how the system works, how the business plan software works, and I'm speaking into that and trying to speak slower. For some reason, I talk very fast, but I figure people don't have time to listen, so if they got 8 seconds, bam, I better get it all in. The other thing I was going to say about speaking, just for a point on it, I'll show you my yellow pen here, but do this because some people, they don't speak very clearly, unfortunately. But if you do this, you stick the pen in your teeth like a horse's bit, back as far as you can, and then read something. I'm talking to Carl Kwan, video expert from Canada. I'm Burke Franco to this power tools, and working my tongue around and mouth around. I look really stupid. But when you take the pen out of your mouth is stretched, and it's very easy to speak clearly. I don't know if you can tell the difference after me just doing that little drill. It's not hard to do, or it's very easy to do. And I recommend before you go, do it first thing in the morning, but that's crazy. But if you're going to get on a call with somebody, or certainly if you're going to record a video or a demo or something like that, do that, because then it makes you just speak a little bit better.
It's true. And I tend to, because I did voiceover work, I tend to have to exercise or stretch my mouth a little bit, or and do kind of open my mouth really wide and closing it and like just stretching my face or whatever in order to loosen up my lips and muscles and get them all kind of warmed up in order to speak properly, because otherwise it doesn't sound nearly as good, or I'm not as conscious of it, I think is what it is. And I know that's,
Yes. You're not trying to
it's
speak perfectly like an FM DJ, so I say everything just right, because I have to work really hard to do that. And I sound like I'm really faking it, and it doesn't sound
right, exactly.
it's
There are a
weird.
lot of little tricks and things like that. One of the biggest ones that people, I guess, don't realize is how much energy you need to sort of present over
Yes.
the video or into the radio or whatever it is. Because if you talk normally, if I were to talk normally, I probably talk more like this in normal life now than I did before, simply because I'm
Because you
used
do
to
it
it. So
so much.
because
Yeah.
I'm so used to it, I probably just talk like this all the time. But I think that for most people, their normal way of speaking, their normal intonation, their normal speaking tone is a little bit more subdued. It's not quite as dynamic or whatever. And when people get on to doing videos, or they're doing if they do interviews with podcasts, for example, that's something, a really important skill to try to develop, is to speak with more energy, to speak with more enthusiasm in the voice, depending what you're talking about. Obviously, if you're talking about like cancer or something like that, you don't want to be too enthusiastic, the
Unless
end
you
of the
cured it.
world or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, like asteroids going to come and destroy the world, maybe we shouldn't be too enthusiastic. But depends on the topic and the context, of course. But if we're trying to present ourselves in our business, then we do want to, again, it's all that the impression that we're creating, right? So having a little bit more energy in your voice is really important too.
I've noticed that, and I noticed I took it in some acting classes where they had video, and even in videos that I've done. Well, first, we all have heard that the camera adds like what, 10 pounds to you. So that doesn't do you
I
any
need
favors
it.
in the first place. But the second thing, to your point, I found that it sucks up energy. You've got to not overdrive it, like be really enthusiastic to overcome it. You just have to like dial it up. And I feel like my crude interpretation would be the camera that takes up, probably you lose maybe 30%, which you got to compensate for that. And that doesn't mean double your output, just go up maybe half again as much, and then you come back to the normal 100%. So you do have to speak a little louder, speak with a little more certainty, a little more assuredness, and without like really overdoing it, being really, no, then it's just annoying. I was watching a sales pitch with the guy the other day, and he's all just too dramatic. And I just thought, oh man, really, this people buy this? He sounds like everybody's buying like crazy, and I'm thinking, wow, this is not my audience, or I'm missing something here, but I'm not believing a word this guy's saying. So, but
Yeah, the used car salesman shtick doesn't really fly anymore,
no,
unfortunately. So yeah,
no.
it's not quite the same. But yeah, I had one client who I was saying, double the amount of energy that you're presenting, and he tried, and he was like, I was like, it's not quite there. So my tip is always like go like Jim Carrey crazy first, and
Yes.
then dial that down. So you can always kind of come back down from that level. So imagine Jim Carrey, absolutely nuts, dial that down, and then sort of find a happy medium there where you're like, okay, it's natural and it feels okay. And it does, however, it does feel weird. You'll always feel a little bit weird until you have seen yourself.
It's
Once you
like stretch.
see, yeah,
Yeah, it's like stretching out before you work out. You make yourself this big, and then when you're ready to go, you kind of dial it back to this. And I was in a workshop one time, and the drill was you're introducing yourself. It was a simple thing, introducing yourself on the phone. I would call you up. Hi, my name is Burke Franklin. Do you have a moment? And people go, I am Burke Franklin. Yeah. And because we say our names so much that people will answer the phone, and they say them like, and the exercise was, I'm Burke Franklin, which is obviously way over the top. But they would get, are you Bert? Are you Burp? Brick? What's your name? And I'm one of those guys I'm not that sensitive anymore. I've been, it's been brutalized for the years, but now it's Burke. I emphasize the K, so they get the K in there. So I'm not Bert and Ernie, and all that. But to really overdo it, this is in privacy of my own bathroom or closet or something. And then here, then and then for public consumption, or then I'm back to normal. So, but it does that extra bit, and then you at least
it makes a
stretches you
difference.
to it, gets you toward it. That's like
I
even
th-
when you walk on stage. I found this also. You want to walk up, you're introduced, you walk up on stage, You don't immediately start talking. You maybe count to five. But while you're counting to five, you walk to one side of the stage and you walk to the other side of the stage. So now you've taken up some space. So then when you are talking, because if you don't do that, you'll walk up to the stage, you'll stop, and you'll plant yourself. And you're there and you're talking and you're thinking, oh, I can't move because God, if I gotta, that takes extra thinking, and you're already scared to death because public speaking is your number one fear over death, even, and heights. So if you're on a stage, public speaking is so you get stuck standing. So if you've already walked over here and you looked around at the audience, you've waited probably at the count to five. It sounds like a long time, especially when you're on stage in front of 1,000 people. You're thinking, oh my God, this is taking forever. What am I doing? But you do it and you come back and now they're ready to listen. You start speaking and you've got the flexibility to walk over here and look at people, walk over here and look at these people. And as long as I'm waving my hands around, the other thing to be mindful of, I find, is that, I can wave my hands around about this much, and you're obviously I can't go too far because if I'm waving my hands around down here, that doesn't do any good. But I want to show it's this big or that tall. It's got to be kept somehow in frame. And of course, you can look at yourself. I'm looking at myself on my screen here, like, okay, how far can I? And which hand is it? With this butt's backwards. But that.
Yeah, little tricks of the trade. I like the idea. I like what you mentioned about if you walk on stage and then kind of like, get used to the space so that you realize you actually have more room to work with than just that. And obviously, if you don't have time to rehearse and get used to it at first, I think that's a really good tip because most people, like you said, they tend to just plant themselves. And when I was doing presentations training for people, that was the one thing that I would say is, look, if they give you a podium, try to stand behind it. Like try to walk
Yeah.
out. Like if you got a big stage and they give you a podium, like don't stand behind the lectern or whatever. Just
Put
like
your hands on it and
exactly. Don't hide behind it. Walk out from it if possible. If you can, use like a handheld microphone instead of, speaking behind the microphone at the little lectern or whatever. It'll definitely be more engaging than just standing there behind it. So yeah, a lot of the things that people. I mean, obviously, like you said, it's fear as well, right? So they definitely have a.
if you're a fan of politicians in the 60s, you take a shoe off and bang it on the lectern like Nikita Khrushchev. I don't even know what he said, but he was famous for. They're always the question is, did he actually take off a shoe or did he bring a third?
Did he have an extra
shoe
one? Yeah,
just to bang it on the lectern.
That's a good question. That is a very good question. Yeah. That's so cool. Do you find that in what you do as well, like just meeting people, there is I don't know if it's an expectation, but I guess it's more like you said, you're in software, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're meeting people, do you find that it's like do you find that you look at people and go, oh, okay, hey, yeah, yep, sure, whatever, we you get that sort of good impression of them. Is that still really important, or is it because you're all sort of in the same space? It's like, anything kind of goes, or
When we meet in person after having done a bunch of Zoom
maybe
calls,
both. Yeah, yeah.
I don't there's like you say, there's an adjustment thing, like, oh, I recognize you. In fact, I was at a conference on last July, and there were people I was watching and on some authors, and I've been watching them talk about things, and the guy walks by me in the foyer and I went, hey George, like, wait, he doesn't know me, but I was so comfortable just walking up to this guy, and he's this famous author. He wrote The Life After Google and Life After TV, I think, and some other things, George Gilder. And he's one of these famous prognosticators of Silicon Valley and other things, technology and stuff. And he was a very nice man, talked to me, like we were old friends. Now, I'd seen him, but he'd never seen me before. So I just felt somehow emboldened to walk up and talk to him and say hi, but I knew his material, so I could ask him questions about it. So, and I would imagine, anybody who's followed you at all, they come up, they know something about you, they probably have a question. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think it's more just like that whole idea of, again, it's the impression that we're creating with people. It's a consistency, but it's also, I guess, the weight we put on it. I think, like, do you care much? Like, if someone isn't exactly what you thought, or is it like, do you feel like there is that, like we talked about how it's important to be congruent or whatever. But for yourself and your industry and your business, do you feel like, okay, there's a little more leeway because of the work that you do, as opposed to someone like me? Like normally, like when I do any meetings, like today I'm wearing this, but when I go out to any kind of meetings, I'm always wearing the blue suit, right? The blue suit, black t-shirt, that's my uniform. So it's always that, right? People
Okay.
see me do anything, it's always wearing that. And so they kind of in all my videos. If you watch any of my videos, especially on my Kwan Multimedia channel, it's always the blue suit, right? I've
Yeah.
kind of changed it up a little bit for the presentations, wanted to be a little more casual, but in the other ones, always like the blue suit. So for me, I feel for myself because what I do, and because I always say to people, look, I'm not a videographer per se. I don't present myself as a videographer because most of the time they are hipsters, with a lot more facial hair than I have, and who wear backward baseball caps, and they just look
Yeah.
more, I don't know, student, filmmaker type of look kind of thing for me.
You're
And so,
more of the director than you are the cinematographer. Now
right,
that you get
exactly.
behind the camera, you're like, or you're framing, however they do that. You frame it, you're 16 by 9 frame with these fingers, which is interestingly convenient. I guess that is a 16:9 ratio.
It's made just for that. That's how nature intended it.
Yeah,
But the
we made films just to fit our fingers. Yeah,
exactly. Even Christopher Nolan, that famous director, he's famous for wearing a suit at work. When you see him in any movie that he's making, he's always wearing a suit. And he also is famous for not having any chairs on set as well, so no one gets to sit down. But in any case, it's a work environment, right? So I think for me, it's it's like a work thing.
yeah.
But when I see other people, I'm kind of like, I don't really care if you're not really, whatever. But I'm just wondering in your industry if that is I don't know
I
if that is
don't know
something
if
that people pay
it's
attention to.
my industry or not, but I'm just saying over the years, my perception of to answer your question, I find that my overall response is more, I would say more flexible, more adaptable, more like my initial thing might be, I learned from Gay Hendricks. He's a famous psychotherapist many years, and he's been doing it for 50 years, Stanford, psychologist, all this stuff. And he talks about the first reaction really when someone says something, especially these days, when someone says I'm crazy, how all the crazy going, nobody's listening to each other. It's all their way. And, anyway, the first response, really the healthiest response would just be, like, versus, I kind of know one guy, he's like this. I think of him, he's like a stick of dynamite. He's got so much in a stick of dynamite, but he's got a 1/4 inch fuse. So he's
Mm.
just like, bam, and it's just, whoa, dude, dial it down. I mean, you don't have to explode right off the bat. I mean, save the explosion for later or whatever, but, lengthen the fuse a bit and start out with, and like, okay, so it's really more scientific. Like I'm not this expectation, but at the same time, like I'm doing a science experiment, and it's what I'm looking for is like I'm more open to what happens, not what I expect to happen. So I wanted to see this and say, that's interesting. That's an interesting result of that experiment. Is it what I wanted? I don't know, but but to let go of the expectation, see what happens. And I think that works in relationships. It works in all kinds of places too. Just like it's the expectation. That's where the Buddhists are talking about. You don't want anything because you'll just be disappointed. Well, okay, but you can have expectations, but don't get all free. You know what I'm saying? You gotta just kind of chill there and give yourself some shock absorption. With a might be the mental part. The scientific, it's an experiment. See what happens, and then go from there. Maybe have some questions to ask and find out where the person's at. And somebody could just be having a bad day. You could be having a bad day. So who knows?
Yeah, I think I think that, that is a really key thing there, the no expectations or there's and no judgments. When my wife and I used to do a lot of yoga, the teacher that we learned from, his whole thing was no judgments and no expectations. And it's basically because you're practicing for yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're not comparing yourself to everyone else in the room. The practice we
Right.
practice was a self practice, and so even though you're all trying to do the same sequence, you're doing it at your own pace, right? There's no
Right.
like time. There's not like you don't have to match to everyone else's. And so his thing was always, no judgments and no expectations, and for yourself basically, right? If you couldn't do something one day, whatever. It's the same idea where you just kind of show up and you're just okay, whatever's happening that day is you sort of just kind of go with it kind of idea. So I definitely like that, and I think it definitely takes a bit of I guess emotional maturity as well to kind of get there. I remember when I was younger, in my early 20s, when I first started, being a little more independent or whatever, in my late teens and stuff, and driving, I'd learned some really bad habits from my uncle, who is a volatile driver, who would just at the, this is like back in like the, 80s and whatever, when he would literally every time we went out with him on the weekend, he had to at least yell or give the finger to at least three people in one afternoon, right? Like it was like a normal occurrence. And so I think I picked up this kind of like volatile, like, way of driving. And I didn't, give people the finger because I, obviously don't want to get beat up, but, I was a little more aggressive. And then one day, I don't know what happened, but I had this real interesting shift where I realized that if I react that way, I'm actually, first of all, it's not good for me, but the other person probably doesn't care, right? Or they're getting off on it, right? Which then really bothered me, that knowing that, okay, they know that they got to me,
Yeah.
right? And that was maybe their intention, who knows? But once I kind of thought, okay, hang on a second, I don't
Don't
want
give
to
them that
react,
satisfaction.
right? Don't give them that satisfaction. But at the same time, if I'm doing it to them, they may not even realize it, because again, they're probably just like in their own little world, oblivious to what's going on. They probably had no idea that they'd done something that maybe you didn't like. So after that, I never got upset. I don't never get upset. Anyone like, people honk at me. I'm just like,
There's nothing you
whatever. I
can
don't
do
say
about
anything.
it. There's
Yeah, I don't
nothing
say
you can do. The
anything.
truck pulls in front of you. What are you going to do?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Right. Like I don't do anything about it. I don't even honk at people anymore. So unless they're like at a red light and then I'm
unless they're
moving for
about to
for a
come
little
into
while,
you,
then
like,
I'll,
hey,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Dangerous things, whatever. But like under normal circumstances, I'm just like, I never honk.
yeah.
I don't get upset at anyone. I'm just like, just it's
Well, and
okay
think
for
about
me.
the chemical secretions from your body when you get in that state. It's just you get a bunch of chemicals in there, and then there's this interesting book called Your Body Speaks Your Mind, and it's all about how diseases are caused really from your thinking. If you listen to Bruce Lipton, who wrote The Biology of Belief, who's been studying biology for stem cells for 50 years, will tell you it's not your DNA that's controlling you, it's your thoughts controlling your DNA. So people who get sick from diseases, pretty much you can trace it all back to somewhere in their thinking there's something going on. That's
Yeah.
controversial, but there's too much proof to refute it.
Oh,
So
I believe it.
you don't need to have those chemical shots when you're driving, and so
Yeah, I mean yeah, it's definitely it's a hard lesson to learn. And then I always find it funny too, because when you're driving and let's say like you are reacting that way, and I think, would you actually do that if someone was like walking on the street in front of you, or like at the grocery store, or what if it turned out to be like your neighbor or something, kind of idea, like, so that's my fear, is I'm like, that could be a client. that could
in
be a
traffic
that
school
could
they
be a
show you a
potential
cartoon
client.
of in traffic school they show you a cartoon of here's this normal person, then he gets into his car and he's like, everything's in his
Yeah.
car.
Jekyll and Hyde. Yeah.
Well, just we're not on the topic of videos, but it was just there was a day when my dog got hit, and I had the dog in the car bleeding, and I'm taking this dog to the vet. Now I'd called the vet. I didn't call 911, but I broke, to be conservative, maybe 15 traffic laws along the way. I ran a red light in front of a cop when I passed him. I didn't care. I was taking this dog to the vet because my dog was going to die, and I'm going to get him to the vet. And people are honking and screaming and everything else. I didn't care. Just like I'm getting to and I figured I'm going to get him to the vet. The cop's going to be behind me. I'm going to jump out of the car to grab the dog. He's going to tase me. It didn't happen, but I didn't care. But the vet people were out waiting for me. I ran him in there and he died anyway. But
Oh,
so I'm thinking that here I am being a complete a-hole all the way down there in anybody's estimation. I thought to myself, you never know. Somebody could be taking a bleeding child to the hospital, a bleeding animal to the hospital. They could be rushing home for some reason. They could have, or they could be a straight up a-hole.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
you
they
can't
could
do
have gotten
anything
fired
about
from
it.
their job, and they're just really, not in the right
I
state
don't
of
know.
mind.
So
There's so many different things. I mean, I think that for us, like here, being in Canada and in Vancouver especially, it's always been a safe place to live.
yeah.
And I can't imagine like places, in not every state, but in a lot of places in the States where it's like, a little dangerous to, get that upset at somebody, because you never know what that person could do, right? I feel more fearful.
Let's get back to video a second. We've got to
Sure.
take a little detour, but I think it's an interesting detour in kind of the realm of consciousness, because it does apply to speaking on stages. It does apply to speaking on video. It does apply to getting your head on straight. I tell my chiropractor his headline should be, get your head on straight.
I like that.
And so to get in a good mental space to speak. And part of what I notice in speaking, one of my rituals is just thinking, so I don't have the stage fright, is to think I've got something that these people need to hear that they probably don't know, or some perspective that I have, or some interesting thing that I want to share, something I've learned. And so when I think of it that way, I'm much less afraid of the stage fright, because, hey, I got something for you. And so you need to hear this, kind of a thing. And I get that thing going in my mind. And the other thing I would say along the way, since I just came back from my Toastmaster meeting, if you have Toastmasters anywhere within driving distance of where you are, I highly, highly recommend it. It doesn't really cost next to anything. It's practically free. But the idea is you really learn to speak. And the idea of not just learning how to speak, but if you want to be heard, or you have an issue, like people don't listen to me, why don't they listen to me? Or I'm selling something, or I'm managing people, or I'm wrangling kids, that you learn to speak very clearly. You learn to trust yourself to speak on your feet. And I think that's important. I think it translates very well to video. It's just that I'm not standing in front of people, but standing in front of people and getting the hang of it. And what I would say about that, and I've said to several people, and I've watched their speaking improve dramatically, it's not about trying to be more and be louder, like we said earlier about the energy, and really do this and say that and all this stuff, and acting. And in fact, acting really isn't acting. Acting is learning to be. And really, what I would say is let yourself out, not hold yourself in and then try to do stuff. You've got to really open up and let yourself out. I look at guys like Jack Nicholson acting. This guy he's fearless. He doesn't matter what depth of depravity he needs to get to play a part, but that's what freaks some people out. I go, oh my God, I can't believe I let myself go to that place. Well, but it's letting yourself be real. Now you got to kind of control it for Toastmasters, I would say, or a business conference. But rather than holding yourself in tight and pushing yourself in some other uncomfortable, getting you out of your comfort zone, I hate that. And so you can expand your comfort zone, really, and to include the stage, to include what you're speaking, to include the people you're talking to, include the topic you're working with. In fact, even the whole idea of and that would be a different person I did some work with. She talks about expanding to include. So your spouse is doing something, you're all, I hate that. Well, what if you could expand your sphere, expand your energy, whatever you want to call that, your thing, your domain, all that, to include whatever this is. Now, that doesn't mean you have to like it. It doesn't, but it's easier to handle it than it is by just outright rejecting something, freaking out about it. You just kind of like, okay, this is happening. How do I expand to include? Even the time when we call it a renoviction around here, the people you're renting from are going to tear the roof off the house, and you got to go because we're overhauling the house. Quite frankly, we're going to make it bigger and better and charge triple the rent, but you're out. So you think, you freak out. But I thought to myself, after 20 minutes of going through all of the worst case scenario in the world, which includes speaking and being on camera and all that, think about what's the upside? There's an opportunity here. This could actually be, I have an opportunity to find a better place at a better deal in a better location with better people. And when you start looking for that, it's amazing what you see. It's like if you close your eyes right now and look around your room or wherever you are and look for everything that's red. Not pick red, but it could be any color. I see the little gear in the bottom of my logo. I see the red in the painting behind me. I see the red stripe in that book on the shelf behind me. I see the little red black belt karate guy, my little teeny pad back there. I can see red, but while I'm looking at red, do I see blue? Nope. Do I see white? Not really, even though it's everywhere. I don't see that. And so likewise with problems or anything else, if you're so fixated on the problem, you can't see solutions, which is why when you try to give somebody a solution, which comes back now we're on to reading the room, look, you were talking to somebody or you're in a room, what's going on? You've got to be able to, is this a time when someone's ready to listen to me? Maybe not. Maybe they're freaked out about something else. And which might be the time to say, is this a good time to talk to you? Do you have a moment? Some people, no, I don't. Call me back in an hour. Got it. So there's the reading the room. There's expanding to include the possibilities. There's the, you're backing up. You're looking at where these could fit in. You're looking for the upside. You're looking for the opportunities. You're looking for the openings. I can go on to different things. There's a whole dance thing called the Five Rhythms Dance, if anybody's heard of that. And I'll think
Wow.
of the person's name who did that, but she out of New York City. Five Rhythms Dances starts out with flowing. So it's all about you're flowing around the room. Then staccato, it picks up a little bit. And then there's chaos, just crazy dance. And then it turns into lyrical. And then there's stillness. So the idea is you have these different rhythms in life, and you could be in one rhythm and somebody else is in a different rhythm. So you got to either get to their rhythm or wait for them to come back to your rhythm, or you both go into another rhythm together. And so there are these rhythms that we have. I think I'm all over the place, but it still applies even here. So when you're talking to people, you might get into a breakout room, you get a sense of like, let's get a feel for who's here. Let's get a sense of where are they at right now? All this stuff we've been talking about, all these just different ways of looking at it where you can expand your consciousness to be effective. And why are we even talking? Because we want to communicate, we want to learn something, we want to teach people looking at this something. And so how do we keep that idea going?
Yeah, that's a lot there, and some real nuggets there for sure. I
Yeah.
like the idea of expanding to include. I love that because, like you said, it's like, not so much getting out of your comfort zone, but expanding your own comfort zone. I like that a lot. And the opportunity, I always say to people, like one of the first videos I ever made about presentation skills was that because of the fear of it, people don't want to do it. But it's an opportunity. Every time you go up there and speak, you have an opportunity. I remember in high school or wherever it was, I remember one of the presentations I did. I did something that was so out of character, but it was really, for me, it was not out of character. But for people that saw it, they were like, "Oh my God,
Thought they knew
that's
you
you."
as a certain
They
person. Yeah.
right, and they had no idea. And so that not only that created this greater impression of who I was, and that really kind of like opened people's eyes, like, "Oh, okay, that person is a lot different than who I thought they were." And, oh, wow, that's much more impressive in a lot of ways, right? And so that opportunity is really important to take advantage of and look at it that way as an opportunity. And then one of the things that you said about sort of opening your mind or whatever, and not saying and not rejecting things right off hand. I always go back to the first rule of improv, which is you don't want to say no because
Got to
that
go with it. You
kills the
go with it. First
conversation.
rule
So
of
it's
improv is go with it. Yeah.
right. So it's the first rule of improv is answer with yes and, right. So whatever it is, like, yes, yes, that is a great idea, or yes, that's one way we could do it, and here's something else, kind of thing. So you're able to continue the scene. Otherwise, it just dies right there, kind of thing.
You want to continue the scene and you want to exacerbate it, make it even more like you look like a pizza. I get this pepperoni all over me, and people love me because they like to lick my face. But looking at you,
Yeah. So I love
go with
that.
it.
Like I really, that's something that I always try, and like even I teach my kid that. I'm like, hey, when we're talking to people, talking whatever, like, if you give them one word answer, it's kind of hard for them to continue the conversation with you. But if you, reply with like this sort of like yes and, let's like, let kind of continue it, right? You can then talk about what you want to talk about or whatever, but you're also letting the other person know that you're, wanting to continue it as well. So it's that engagement with people for sure.
What else can we talk about here? I think
I don't know.
we've covered the video, the presentation, but it's really the thing about you're saying about the energy and expanding, adding the energy to it, because you really want to have a dynamic presence without being annoying, and that's I think that's well, it's not really a trick. It's just a matter of letting yourself out. And the thing is, I discovered also in public speaking, and I remind people this in Toastmasters all the time, is that imagine you're in the audience. We've all been in the audience. We all watch the speaker on stage, and every once in a while you'll see the speaker screw up or something will go horribly wrong. And what do? You're all, the people in the audience are like cringing, like, oh my God, So if you think about that, everybody in the audience, really, you're pulling for the speaker. You're for the speaker. You want the speaker to be a star. You want to hear them get the nuggets from them. You want to get what they're saying. You're for them. You're pulling for them, right? That said, now be the speaker. Truth of the matter is the speaker, the stage in front of the room, in front of the camera, is the safest place in the room. It
Yeah.
turns out that is the safest place in the room. So when the light's on you, like George Patton said, when in charge, take charge.
That's a great tip. Good advice, Burke. Good advice. I like that. I like where this went today.
This was our coaching call. We're in a online networking group, and we always get together with different members like once a week and have a coaching call. We've decided to turn it into a podcast to learn something from each other and then share what we learned with everyone else. So thanks, Carl. Great talking with you. Is there anything else we
Thank
want
you,
to
Burke.
get into? Other
No, I
steps
think
we
you
need to
covered
do?
it. Yeah, no, you covered everything, and we pretty much covered the gamut. And yeah, I mean, what we're doing today what we did today was fantastic, and I really enjoyed it, and I think we shared some really good value with people as well, and I learned a lot.
Yeah, I look forward to having you actually help me do some of my business videos, because that's a kind of a different conversation, but because that's a matter of, you have the psychology of how to, or should it be the drawing thing? Should it be an actual, testimonials? Should it be a proper software demo, which I'm prone to doing, which, it's okay, but could we do cartoons? I don't know. So I would refer to you or defer to you to tell me like what would be the best way, the most credible way to present myself. And like I think you said one time back of the optimum intro videos, 90 seconds, I think it is, you said.
Right. Right. Yeah. 90 seconds is kind of the best for sure. It depends. Like, again, it's always like, you're taking people on somewhere else after, right? You don't want to, it's not necessary to tell every single thing or, cover every single detail. You're kind of almost in a way pre-qualifying them with that first intro video. You're
Yeah.
letting them know they found the right person, tool, whatever it might be, solution. And then the next step is, okay, here's what we're going to do next. And, so it's really a part of the journey.
What I like about your expertise is that you could look at what I'm doing or what anybody's doing and say, what would be the most congruent way, method, style to promote your thing? Like some people, the cartoon, the quick hand drawing on the whiteboard is good. Some people,
Yep.
it's something different. It could be all kinds of different ways of doing it. I might have my idea, but you go, no, hold on, Burke. No, that not for you. Which we need someone to tell us that who's done videos for hundreds of people. And I've seen your
Yep.
demo videos and I've heard you speak before. So I know you know what you're talking about. So it makes it
Yeah.
easy to defer to your expertise on that. I think people would do well to defer to your expertise and have you help them put together a proper 90-second video that makes the pitch.
I like that. We should cover that in our next coaching call. I'll be more than happy to go through some of that for sure.
You'll help me make my pitch in the coaching call. That'd be my way to getting this out of you for free. Yeah.
There you go. Anyway, let's wrap it up there. I gotta get some stuff done. So I think it's been just
What's
over
your
an
web
hour,
address?
but
What's your web address for our listening audience?
it is Carl at kwanmultimedia.com is the email, and kwanmultimedia.com is the website address. So it's KWAN multimedia.com. You can always look me up on YouTube as well under just Carl Kwan. You'll be able to find either the main YouTube channel or the Kwan Multimedia YouTube channel. So please look out for me there.
I'm Burke Franklin at businesspowertools.com. You can see my little logo thing. My email, my web address is right here. And my logo is, whereas it's over there. So, right. So if you're building a business, you need some help. I've talked to business brokers, and business brokers are now telling me that most businesses behind the scenes are train wrecks. And they say that, like, train wreck, God, that's kind of harsh, but I have the tools to fix this not broken businesses, but to really enhance your business, especially want to sell it for more money faster. So that's one way. Or if you're raising capital to build your business, that's what it certainly is great for. So anyway, that's my pitch. Check it out. And between us, we'll help lots of businesses get their act together. Thanks,
Perfect.
Carl.
Thank you.
So I'll just turn off the recording there.